Hi, so I just want to give a very quick review of a recent trade paperback. It's been out a few months now. And so it collects the 6 issues of a miniseries that came out earlier on. It's called You'll Do Bad Things. It's by Tyler Boss and Adriano Terciulucci. And that's the cover. And basically it says it's been 10 years since the release of He Came In With a Smile, the true crime smash hit that chronicled the brutal murders committed by the nursery rhyme killer, but in the decades since its release, its author Seth Holmes hasn't produced another title. Seth wants to write a story with a happy ending, but every time his fingers clack across the keyboard, it always ends in his character's deaths. Worse yet, these tales of blood and barbarity that flow so freely from Seth's imagination are starting to happen in real life. So it says, turn the page on this mind-bending Giallo-inspired thriller from multi-hyphenate Tyler Boss and breakout talent Adriano Terciulucci. This was a really mind-bending thriller, and like they said, it does have a very Giallo kind of flavour. So Giallo are like the Italian thrillers with a very strong horror element, and they're always done like in these saturated, like not neon colours, but like pure reds in the background, greens, yellows, etc. Everything seems hyper exaggerated. The speech and dialogue as well is always a bit more extra, and they nail it perfectly with this. For example, the color palette is just pure Giallo, where they saturate the pages with certain colors. So there can be like swaths of like yellows and greens, and next, when it comes to like a violent bit, there's just like swaths of red and oranges, etc. The artwork is very clever as well. In the UK, there's a particular art style in the 70s and 80s, especially in girls' comics, where when they did romance comics, they had to use like these Italian artists to do the comics. And this style here is very much like that. But what's interesting with this artist is the style changes as the story progresses, the story changes, so does the art style. And it really adds to the build up of the mystery. And again, just to show you what I mean by the colours swatches. So the main character is this writer. He's basically got writer's block. He did a true crime book that was a hit, and he solved this mystery of who's doing all the murders. But now there's a new spree of murders that are starting, and it seems to be like a mirror image of what he's typing. He's trying to do a romance novel to break away from the true crime genre, but each time his stories just end up going into these dark areas, and his characters end up being killed by this mysterious assailant. And as he's typing, like a day later, the same thing happens in real life. And so it fleshes out it. What's very clever about it shows you the stories as he's typing them out, and as the stories are being typed out, it shows you that in real life the murders are being committed as like a perfect reflection of the stories. And so this mystery deepens. The police get involved. These two detectives put him high on the list of suspects. There's other characters get involved. There's this woman who's an S&M dominatrix who he stumbles into by running away from a certain incident, and they develop this kind of friendship. And really, that's all I can say, because I don't want. There's a huge, massive twist. I will say I did guess the twist, so that's the only downside. But I think that's just because I've watched so many Giallo and dark thrillers and read so many mystery thrillers that I just kind of like pieced it together straight away. And again, just the kind of color palette, but it's a very heady, trippy kind of book how it's portrayed, because you have this like, it's almost got like this dreamlike quality, again, which is a Giallo thing, where you see these images happening and you're thinking, is this actually happening, or is this just the story that he's typing out? And obviously it turns out that, yeah, he is typing out the story, but these things are happening like a few hours later. But the big reveal at the end, some nice big pages there, the big reveal at the end is very satisfactory. It's like I say, but it goes in, and it kind of leaves it very vague with the ending. There's a coda at the end. Like, it's a satisfactory read. I don't think it would. I don't think I'd have enjoyed it if I'd bought it monthly, because there's a lot of like jumps in the story. Which, if you're reading it as a collector's edition, that's fine because you're not having to wait a month and you don't forget what's happened. But as a graphic novel, as a collector's edition, just show you some of the covers. As a collector's edition, perfect. But I will say there's an incident in it with a dog, and it's weird, isn't it? How a story where human beings get attacked or killed, fine. Something happens to a dog, oh my god! And that, even though it's not a real dog, it's a drawing of a dog. I had to put the book down. I was like, oh. So it took me a few minutes to get back into it again. It was a real like sucker punch, but it added to the eeriness and the harsh grimness of the story. But even though it's a very hard-line story, it did it in a way where a lot of the stuff you didn't see, and because the colours were so saturated and heavy, it took away from some of the brutality, so it made it more palatable to read, if that makes sense. I would give the book an 8 out of 10, but with a caution. If you don't like cruelty to animals, like I said, there's that one page, and if you don't like books that aren't strictly linear in nature, you will not like this, because it does. You have to work things out yourself, and you kind of process it as the story moves on. But if you like experimental storytelling, then this will be the one for you. Yeah, I enjoyed it. If you want something a bit different, that's not superheroes, and isn't your run-of-the-mill crime novel. Like I said, it reads just like an Italian Giallo film, and I enjoyed that because that ticked my boxes. That's a genre that I enjoy. I love things that are slightly weird, slightly off kilter, slightly dreamlike and trippy. So yeah, I recommend this. So You'll Do Bad Things by Tyler Boss, Tetsulichi, and letters by Otman Elaho. Okay, bye.